What's your reaction to Israel's strikes on Gaza today?
Well, we're going to have to see what's happening. We want to make sure that
Is Europe able to influence Trump? I think the short answer is if we're talking about policy, if we're talking about the position of the US government, no. The policy and positioning of the US government on Ukraine, on Israel, on its relationship with Europe is defined by the president and those around him, largely the president.
Became fully operational last month in all 50 states, the job they're doing. What we inherited from this past
And I've been very vocal in saying, from the beginning, this is not the same Trump that we're going to see the first time around. This is a no stone unturned sort of approach. The idea that America first means a narrow isolationist foreign policy, as sort of was read in the first administration, which I think was somewhat fair. I mean, it was not, with the exception of certain, strikes on Syria, the Qasem Soleimani attack. The U.S. administration was not very active on the foreign policy stage outside of, in the security and defense arena. And this time around, it was pretty clear that the list of ambitions, everything, that we saw through out there, from Greenland to Panama Canal, to demands that hostages were returned home before he was inaugurated, and ending the war on the first day, the Ukraine war on the first day in office, made it very clear that that America first was not going to be isolationist. America first just means now wherever American interests are at play, the U.S. will be pursuing that, but it's always with the eye to how that benefits the U.S. at home.
The planet, the worst people on the planet, they allowed into our beautiful country under the Trump administration.
I think what we're seeing with the U.S. policy on Ukraine is that the president is frustrated by the slow pace of any movement in resolving the conflict. And I said this months ago that, Secretary Marco Rubio said, months ago, look, we can't just continue to endlessly pour resources in there. And that was a signal that the administration was getting frustrated and a bit sanguine about continuing on, in putting all of its efforts towards resolving a conflict that is intractable. And then, I said at the time, expect to pivot towards the Middle East. And indeed, that's exactly what happened.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to have President Zelensky of Ukraine.
There is just more perceived, I think there's a perception in the US administration, there's more to be gained from resolving the conflict in Israel. There was more to be gained from resolving the conflict in Israel. And there's more to be gained just generally from relationships in the Middle East, including normalization between Saudi and Israel. And what's interesting of that is, there has been efforts to pivot away from the Middle East for successive US administrations. And it's almost as though, which this administration obviously has not been talking about, but it's almost as though there's a pivot towards the region. He's remaking the world in his image. He's been very clear about that, and he is hoping for a golden age for America, and that is entirely the intention. And he's very active on the entire global stage in making that happen.
quite rambunctious. They've been doing some shooting, and we think maybe the leadership isn't involved in.
Jelajahi cara baru mendapatkan informasi. Download MetroTV Extend sekarang.